Welcome back to DSR, and we're going to return to the core rules by doing another class out of the player's handbook. This one is going to be the Ranger, which is a class I love. I understand a lot of people don't love it. I love it, and I think it is a lot better than what the online Reddit community thinks. It is great. Now, it does need a little fixing. There's some feel bads, but I think it's great. Let's get into it. Here we are in the player's handbook, and you see the core traits. Right? Dexterity and wisdom are your primary ability scores. D10 hit point die. Strength and dexterity proficiency with saving throws. You get 3 skill proficiencies, which is not standard is 2, so they do get 1 extra proficiency. The bard also gets 1 extra. The rogue gets 2 extras. And the artificer only gets 1 extra, but only if you multi-class to it after level 1. So that one's weird. They get proficiency with simple martial weapons. They have light, medium armor, and shield training, and then they get some starting equipment. The Rangers, far from bustling cities and amid the trees of trackless forests and across wide plains, Rangers keep their unending watch in the wilderness. Rangers learn to track their quarry as a predator does, moving stealthily through the wilds and hiding themselves in brush and rubble. Thanks to their connection with nature, Rangers can also cast spells that harness primal powers of the wilderness. A Ranger's talents and magic are honed with deadly focus to protect the world from the ravages of monsters and tyrants. All right, and so you get on your core traits if you started with a level 1 character. If you multi-class to it later, you get the standard stuff. And then you also get proficiency with martial weapons, proficiency 1 skill. So if you multi-class to a ranger after level 1, you pick up the extra skill proficiency still. And then you get training with the light and medium armor and shields. So this makes a good armor dip, as they say, for a lot. But it's a pretty good for a number of things you get at level 1. Then you have your ranger class features table. They are a half caster. A lot of standard stuff. Their special thing here is that they have the favored enemy column, and we're going to see that feature down below. And frankly, yes, this is where the feel bad start is with favored enemy. In fact, that is the whole thing, is favored enemy, where they give you this resource, make it seem like it's going to be cool, and then don't do enough with it to make it meaningful, and so you end up with this dead feature on your class, which isn't the end of the world. The Ranger's still pretty good without it, but yes, that is something I agree that we should have a fix for. And so I do have a fix. I'm going to update my fix. Going to have a revision 2 of my fix that I'll do in a video after this one. And they're half casters. So you start off at level 1 with 2 first level spell slots, and then eventually get up to 5th level spell slots, having 2 of those as well. And as mentioned, they have spell casting, which they learn spells from the Druid table, Druid list of spells. And wisdom is their spellcasting focus for that, and they can use a druidic focus for their ranger spells. Now, they don't get any cantrips. Paladins and rangers don't get any cantrips by default. They have to sacrifice their fighting style that they get at level 2 in order to pick up some cantrips, which is a little bit strange. The artificer still keeps its cantrips, and they get cantrips right at level 1, 2 cantrips, and then they gain a third and a fourth. I think the fourth is by level 10? Or maybe it's just a third one at level 10. I can't remember. Now, is that worth, is 2 cantrips worth a fighting style? I would say most of the time not. Most of the time a fighting style is better and more versatile than cantrips on these half casters. Now, here's the difference. And I'll remind you on this one as well. The Ranger and Paladin are half casters, full martials. The Artificer is a half caster, 1/4 martial. Like, they're as good at being a martial as druids are. Okay? All right. Now, also at level 1, you get favorite enemy. This is that feature we talked about in that column, which is it starts out just fine. You always have the Hunter's Mark spell prepared, so 1 free spell preparation. You can cast it twice without expending a spell slot, and you gain unexpended uses of this ability when you finish a long rest. The number of times you can cast this spell without a spell slot increases when you reach certain ranger levels, as shown in the favorite enemy column of the ranger features table, which is the one I called out above. Also at level 1, you get weapon mastery. Your training with weapons allows you to use the mastery property of 2 kinds of weapons of your choice with which you have proficiency, such as longbows and short swords, which are 2 good options. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can change the kinds of weapons you choose. For example, you could switch to using mastery properties of scimitars and longswords. And if you want to be the classic 2-weapon fighting ranger archetype, then probably go with a scimitar and a short sword, because then you can get Vex from one of them, and then you get Nick from the scimitar. And I know that bothers some people, so maybe just reflavor the short sword as some sort of long hooked knife kind of thing, and the scimitar is a regular scimitar. I don't know. Either way, just reflavor. Flavor is free. But don't forget that you get some good options, and you can change these. So you might want a ranged option as well. Now, Rangers don't get more weapon masteries, unlike Barbarians and Fighters. They gain more weapon masteries as they level up. Rangers do not, but you can switch them. So maybe go with scimitars and a short bow, and then you can use, your scimitars for the nick, so you get an extra attack as part of your attack action, and still have your bonus action free for your hunter's mark, the ability to cast and move hunter's mark, and then I don't know, a short bow so that you can like have the Vex property. I don't know. Let's move on to level 2, Deft Explorer. And this is, yes, leaning into what Rangers are that people sometimes, I don't know, I think it seems pretty often there's this debate of like, what is a Ranger supposed to be? Okay, they're a martial and they're an expert focused martial. So they're a skill expert, right? They get an extra skill proficiency, they get access to expertise. Now their skill proficiencies are all focused in like natural surroundings kind of things, which is fine. That's a pretty good list of stuff. So right, level 2, they get their first expertise. And they gain 2 languages, and these languages can be from any language. They're not restricted to just the common languages, so they could be picking up like exotic languages. Then also at level 2, they get their fighting style. You gain a fighting style of your choice. See chapter 5. Instead of choosing one of these feats, you can choose the following option below, which is Druidic Warrior, and this is where you can pick up some Druid cantrips. You learn 2 Druid cantrips of your choice. Guidance and Starry Wisp are recommended. I don't actually recommend those. Definitely Guidance. Guidance is recommended by me for sure. I don't know if I'd pick up Starry Wisp. I'd probably go for some other utility, Mold Earth, Guidance, or sorry, we already said guys, Mold Earth, Shape Water, Control Flames, so you can be putting out, torches while you're on a stealth mission. You're a martial, right? And Starry Wisp is not going to be nearly as good as if you just shoot somebody with your longbow or a short bow or throw a dagger or something like that. Okay. Plus, you can be a 2-weapon fighter. So even at like this level, you could have 2 daggers and throw 2 daggers. So if you get mastery with the dagger, you can throw 2 as just part of your action, which is going to be way more damage than a Starry Wisp. Now, Starry Wisp has that secondary effect of where they can't turn invisible. I don't think that's going to come up very often in Tier 1. It's actually just not even very often at all. Like, it is a kind of a rare thing where that's going to be meaningful. And the way it has to be meaningful is you have to encounter the creature and be fighting them, and then they turn invisible during combat again, right? Because if they're invisible before they start and then never turn invisible again, then there's no opportunity to use Starry Wisp, right? You didn't know they're there, then they attacked you, now they're visible, and then they never go invisible again. It doesn't matter if you use Starry Wisp. You kind of have to know they're there, be aware that they can turn invisible and will do so during the combat, and then Starry Wisp is going to mean something during the combat. The chosen cantrips count as ranger spells for you, and wisdom is your spellcasting ability for them. Whenever you gain a ranger level, you can replace one of these cantrips with another druid cantrip. So when you get into tier maybe 3 and you took Druidic Warrior, at that point you could consider swapping in Starry Wisp if you start encountering monsters that are turning invisible or taking the hide action as a bonus action in combat on a regular basis. But I still think you're going to get more mileage out of a lot of other cantrips, like the mending cantrip. A lot of DMs will allow you to mend broken arrows, and then you don't have to worry about tracking how many arrows you're using and how many you're breaking, because you can automatically just mend them afterwards. There's a lot of other options that are a lot better, but most of the fighting styles are better for you than these cantrips anyway, right? If you want to be a ranger tank, take the protection fighting style, and now you're a tank. Yeah, they can make great tanks. Just pick up a shield, one weapon, a single weapon, and I don't know, maybe get something with a sap mastery. I don't know if you'd want that. That kind of counteracts your soft taunt, but make sure you pick up the protection fighting style. Then at level 3, you get your ranger subclass, which is standard, and then at level 4, you pick up an ability score increase, which is also standard. All right, so let's pause and rank the ranger in tier 1 of play, which is levels 1 through 4, and I will link a card here to my tier ranking system, so I'm not going to explain it again. If you want to see how that works, go watch that video. I'm going to give them a B as a tank, and yes, that is a big upgrade from what I originally had, and that's because I didn't realize at first when I started this channel 7 months ago, a little over 7 months ago, I didn't notice that they changed the protection fighting style so that if you use the reaction, it not only causes disadvantage against the triggering attack against your ally, it causes disadvantage on all attacks against that ally until the start of your next turn. So it's basically a soft taunt for that ally, right? So you just pick that up and you're a pretty good tank. Now, it's not quite as good as taunting something so they have disadvantage against anyone but you, but it's almost as good, right? If there's only 2 of you on the front line, it's just as good. Almost. All right, so B is a tank. A is a frontliner because they can make great frontliners with 2-weapon fighting. You might want some sort of defensive options so you don't, maybe the defensive fighting style. I don't know. That kind of competes with 2-weapon fighting style. So that you, between damage and defenses there on front line, really depends on whether or not you have someone else as a tank on the front line with you, or you have a good healer in the back row. Then they can be an A as a skirmisher. They don't have a feature built in to give them a bonus action disengage, but they do have two spell options. Well, they have one spell option, which is Zephyr Strike. I know that hasn't been printed for 5.5 yet, but as far as my games go, I allow any content from 5e that hasn't been reprinted yet. If it has been reprinted, you must use the latest version, and that's pretty standard. So hopefully your DM allows you to use Zephyr Strike, because you just cast Zephyr Strike and blam, you now have no opportunity attacks for an entire minute, which is great. And it does take concentration, but it's only a first level spell slot. So you can do that once per combat. You have plenty of, by level 3, you have enough spell slots that you can do that 3 times in a day. And I do calculate the average number of combats per day to be 3 combats per day at 3 rounds. Then A is a range damage dealer. They're great range damage dealers, especially with Hunter's Mark. And in Tier 1, they are the best damage dealers if you go for the 2-weapon fighting or ranged, because they can make the most attacks and deal the most damage with Hunter's Mark, right? You're not going to concentrate on many other things. So just wait in there, put Hunter's Mark down. You're making 2 attacks with your Nick property, and each of those attacks are getting an extra 1d6 damage. You have the highest damage of anybody in Tier 1. Now, in Tier 2, you drop down to be average among the marshals, and then the Ranger never keeps up, according to Treant Monk's DPR calculations, which I agree with. So they do need some help in Tiers 3 and 4. All right, then D is a blaster. Yeah, there are some blast spells. None of them are great, and they don't have enough spell slots, nor do they have higher level spell slots to be upcasting things, so you should not be a blaster. They're a C as a controller. Now, you could use some control spells, but I would say the same thing about their control spells as I did about their blaster spells. The reason I'm giving a C, though, is they have weapon masteries, and they can be using those to control creatures. So they can access, like, push and sap and topple and all of those other weapon masteries, and slow to be controlling monsters. Now, you can't do that and maximize your damage at the same time. You have to choose between one or the other. They can be a healer. That is coming from their spells. Goodberry is a solid heal spell out of combat. It's very efficient for the Ranger to be doing that, especially if you cast it the night before, right? Create some Goodberries the night before. They last 24 hours till the next night, and you could be handing those out the next day, healing people, or eating them yourselves between combats to heal up. They don't have a lot of other ability in Tier 1. They have no other ability to cure any like negative conditions on your allies, so they're not a great healer. Then a C is support, same kind of thing. This is based on their spells. And, it depends on whether or not you get guidance. Guidance can help you. You do have access to some spells. You can be helping with some support, but you're not very good in Tier 1. They are an A as a scout, though. Pretty easy for them to be a great scout, especially if you, depending on, what background you choose, and get access to proficiency with thieves' tools and whatnot. So they can be an A scout. And a D as a face. They have no access to any social skills except insight. Yeah, insight is their only social skill, which is one of the 4 social skills, but having access to one of those doesn't make you good as a face. So they're a D at face. Moving on to level 5 features, we have extra attack, which is great and important and super simple to use, so we don't need to cover that. Level 6, roving. Your speed increases by 10 feet while you aren't wearing heavy armor. We're not proficient with heavy armor anyway. You could take a feat or dip cleric to get that. I don't know why you would. You also have a climb speed and a swim speed equal to your speed. So Rangers pick up everything. Well, I guess they don't have burrowing. They don't have burrowing or flying speeds, but they pick up climbing and swimming, which is fantastic. That makes them really great at being mobile in a lot of scenarios. Level 9, expertise. Choose 2 of your skill proficiencies with which you lack expertise. You gain expertise in those 2 skills. So now you have a total of 3 expertise skills. And level 10, which is going to be our last level for Tier 2, you have primal force. It's called Tireless. Primal forces now help fuel you on your journeys, granting you the following benefits. Temporary hit points. As a magic action, you can give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier, minimum of 1. You can use this action a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum of once, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So it's about somewhere between levels 8 and 12. You're going to max out your dexterity, probably, right? Unless you're going for Strength Ranger, which is a kind of niche build, but you can do it. So you're going to max out your dexterity between 8 and 12, which is probably, not always, your primary attack ability. There is a way to go like wisdom first and then pick up Druidic Warrior with your fighting style option so that you have Shillelagh instead, and then you're like Wisdom first on everything. But that makes you a melee only character. Now, if you do that, you actually probably do want to get like Starry Wisp or some sort of ranged cantrip, because you don't want to be attacking with a ranged weapon now because you don't have a great dexterity score. Anyway, okay, so you're going to have a probably, I don't know, +2, +3 wisdom modifier by this level. Yeah, you want to start, after level 12. So at 12 or later, you want to be at least pumping up your wisdom now as your secondary ability score, because you're going to have more and more features that are tied to your wisdom, like your spellcasting is tied to wisdom. This is tied to your wisdom. And it's going to benefit from it. So start pumping up your wisdom, and you're going to get more temporary hit points from this. I don't know that it's, in general, I'd say it's not worth your action in combat to do this, but it's definitely worth doing it after combat. So whenever you're not in combat and you don't have any temporary hit points on you, do this, pick up some more temporary hit points so that you go into the next combat starting with temporary hit points. Then we have another feature there under Tireless, which is decrease exhaustion. Whenever you finish a short rest, your exhaustion level, if any, decreases by 1. And as far as any official core and expanded rules content goes, that's anything published by WotC. This is the only feature in the game where you can reduce a level of exhaustion with a short rest. Now, there's also the Greater Restoration spell, which you can cast and remove a level of exhaustion. But as far as just taking a short rest, and removing a level of exhaustion, you can do it with just the ranger here. I don't know that, and it doesn't say anything about long rest, right? Normally, a long rest reduces your level of exhaustion by 1. Typically, like rules is written, you would still only remove 1 level of exhaustion when you finish a long rest. But I don't know. You could talk with your DM and say, like, can I take 8 short rests instead of 1 long rest? Maybe. That might be, if you have multiple levels of exhaustion, that might be the way to go. All right, let's pause again and rank it for tier 2. That's levels 5 through 10. And the changes here in tier 2 are you go from a C to a B as support, and from a D to a C for face. And most of that is coming from your spell that you pick up, get access to when you reach level 5 as a second level spell. It is Enhanceability, which is a great spell for scouting, for putting on other people to support their capabilities, putting on yourself if you need to be better as a face. It's probably better for you to use it as a support spell to, like, cast it on somebody who's actually good as a face and make them great at face by giving them advantage on all charisma checks or all insight checks or something like that. But yeah, those ratings changes are mostly coming from that one spell that you have access to. And if you pick it up, great. And if you don't pick it up, then you don't get those changes. Now, you might be saying, like, wait, they have all kinds of other features and all kinds of other things going on. Yes, they do. And these features you get help you retain your rating as an A, right? Because remember, these ratings are relative to every other class in the same tier. So everybody else is gaining features in tier 2, making them better as well. So you didn't gain ground against paladins and barbarians and fighters and everyone else. You maintained your ground as a B tank, an A frontliner, an A skirmisher, and an A ranged damage dealer. Hope that makes sense. Continuing on with our features, at level 13, we're now into tier 3, which starts at level 11, but we don't have any level 11 or 12 features for our base class. Level 13, Relentless Hunter. Taking damage can't break your concentration on Hunter's Mark, which is cool, but not good enough and way too late. Yes. So that's a bit disappointing. And the big problem right here is that Hunter's Mark is a level 1 spell that doesn't upcast very well. And you have these uses of Favored Foe, so you get to cast it for free, but when you cast it for free, it's always at level 1. So it does upcast, and at level 3, it would last like 8 hours, and at level 5, it would last like 24 hours. But it still has concentration, right? And at levels 5 and 9 and 13 and 17, you're gaining access to new levels of spells, and many of them have concentration. So you're getting access to all these cool spells that have concentration. But if you want to use Hunter's Mark from your level 1 feature Favored Foe, then you can't use any of those spells. So usually what I recommend with a Hunter as written is instead you use Favored Foe for those fights where it's an easy to medium fight and you don't need to expend spell slots for more impactful spells, right? So in those easier fights, just use Favored Foe, do extra damage, take it down faster, because even in an easy to medium fight, it's still beneficial to take things out faster so that the party takes less damage, right? That's less resources that the party has to spend to heal up after that fight. So burn through those, favored foe uses, take out the easy fights faster, and then when you get to harder fights, use your best spells you have, like Conjure Barrage and your, I don't know, whatever other concentration spells you want to be using from your second, third level spells you have access to, and fourth level spells you have access to at level 13. Then level 14, we have Nature's Veil. You invoke Spirits of Nature to magically hide yourself. As a bonus action, you can give yourself the invisible condition until the end of your next turn. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier, minimum of once, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Okay, so unlike our level 13 feature, this one is a big deal. All right, note that it's the invisible condition, and it's the same invisible condition you get from succeeding the hide action and casting invisibility, right? Same invisible condition, all the same benefits, right? All three of those things give you the exact same benefits. Now, the only difference between those three things is the situations under which they end, right? And the ending conditions for the hidden state and the ending conditions for the invisibility spell are both different, right? It's just that's the only difference between these two things. And in this situation, the only condition under which this ends is the duration. Okay, unless somebody has the ability to remove the invisible condition from you, right? Which would be a separate thing. So under normal conditions, normal situations, you're going to remain invisible regardless of whether you cast a spell or attack. So what you want to do is use this bonus action first. Like, you're not required to take bonus actions after your action. So use this bonus action first, then make all of your attacks while you're invisible, which is going to give you advantage on all of those attacks. And then you're going to remain invisible till the end of your next turn, which means on your next turn, without using this again, you're still invisible. Make all of your attacks with advantage, right? And enemies are going to have disadvantage to attack you, even if they happen to figure out what space you're in. But if you move after you turn invisible, they have no idea where you move to. And no, there are no rules in the game for automatically detecting where somebody moves, right? You can't hear where they move. You can't automatically see their footprints. The best that the monsters could do is a passive perception check, as long as you're still within line of sight, to see where you move to. And if they succeed at that, they just know what square you're in. They don't actually see you. Okay. So they still can't target you with abilities that require sight, like a lot of spells require. They can attack you, but they'd have disadvantage. That is the best they can do. If they want to do better than that, that's the best they can do for free. If they want to do better than that, they have to actually spend some sort of action economy and take the search action, and then they get to roll a perception check and see if they can beat that. The game does not specify what the DC for a passive perception check against your invisible condition, nor a active perception check against your invisible condition. So you'd have to talk with your DM for how that's going to work. I would recommend just use your spell save DC, right? That's kind of how this works, right? This is your primal magic, your capability you're using. Just use your spell save DC as the DC for them to find you with a passive perception check or an active perception check. Okay, but barring anything like that, you basically get 2 rounds of attacking while invisible, giving you advantage on every single attack. And that works if you're a ranged attacker, or that works if you're a melee attacker. You can also move in and out of melee without provoking opportunity attacks, because they cannot opportunity attack you unless they can see you. All right, this makes you an even better skirmisher and an even better ranged attacker. So this is a great feature. So you definitely want to be pumping up your wisdom if you haven't pumped it up by now. And yes, there are a lot of attractive martial feats you want to get. So maybe you didn't max out your dexterity until level 12, but once you get to level 16, hit your wisdom, try to get that to 18 or higher. Hopefully you started at 16 wisdom, because the number of uses of this is equal to your wisdom modifier, and you only get to do that number of uses per long rest. So it's let's call it 1.5 rounds of being invisible, which is a big deal. So if you're going to go this far into Ranger, you definitely want to be maxing out your wisdom now. Like, max your dexterity first, then your wisdom, and you're going to have a great character. And ranking tier 3 is easy because it's the same as tier 2. You have all the same scores. And yes, you did get more powerful, but so did every other class, which means you didn't gain any ground against them, but you also didn't lose any ground relative to the other classes. Moving on to level 17 for tier 4. This is levels 17 to 20. At level 17, we get Precise Hunter, which is you have advantage on all attack rolls against the creature currently marked by your Hunter's Mark. And now, Hunter's Mark is super attractive. Just getting advantage all the time is really strong. If you really, really have to, if you really have to like use a different concentration spell for some big fight, that's maybe where you want to save your Nature's Veil uses for it. And the rest of the time, just use Hunter's Mark, because now you have advantage plus that extra D6. So use Hunter's Mark for most fights, and whenever you have some spell that you definitely need to use for your concentration for, switch to that, and then use Nature's Veil to give yourself advantage on all those attack rolls for 1.5 rounds at a time, 1.5 rounds ish at a time, right? Yeah, and now you have a really big conflict for your concentration, because that is pretty good. That's a big enhancement to Hunter's Mark. You know what would have been a better enhancement? To remove concentration from Hunter's Mark at like level 5. Yeah, that would have been better. Level 18, Feral Senses. Your connection to the forces of nature grants you blind sight with a range of 30 feet. Okay, blind sight is awesome, and that is a bigger range than what most other classes can get access to. I don't think any class gets access to that level of blind sight. I mean, there's the fighting style, the blind fighting style, which gives a 10-foot range. You have a 30-foot range. I think there's an epic boon that gives you that kind of range. Anyway, blind sight is fantastic. It allows you to see creatures through cloud effects, which is amazing because true sight does not pierce cloud effects. So if there's a fog of cloud blocks your true sight. It does not block blind sight. Blind sight works even if you're blinded, even if you have the blinded condition. Somebody casts blindness on you and makes you blinded, you still can see with blind sight, right? It works in darkness. It works in the darkness spell. It works in clouds and everything. So blind sight is really powerful. True sight can do some things that blind sight can't do, but generally true sight actually isn't as good as blind sight. Level 19, we get our standard epic boon. They say they recommend the boon of dimensional travel. I would probably get boon of combat prowess first, unless you're really having trouble getting in and out of combat because you're trying to be like a skirmisher and you're having a hard time moving in and out of combat, which you probably shouldn't have too much of a trouble with, with Nature's Veil and other things like that. I don't know. If you don't have any good tanks in the party and your healer's not good enough, maybe do get dimensional travel so you can bounce around and be taking less damage. Then at level 20, Foe Slayer, our capstone. The damage type for Hunter's Mark is a D10 instead of a D6, which is pretty disappointing. If you didn't have to concentrate on Hunter's Mark, this would be amazing because then you could do something like cast Swift Quiver and you get 2 attacks with your action, or 2 range attacks with your action, 2 range attacks with your bonus action, and now you're making 4 attacks and making a D10 or adding a D10 to the damage instead of a D6 is like 2 more points of damage. So if you're making 4 attacks in a round in a turn, that's an extra 8 DPR. That would have made this okay. But since Hunter's Mark still has concentration, that means we cannot use Hunter's Mark and Swift Quiver at the same time because both require concentration. And that means you would be, if you're using Hunter's Mark, only making 2 attacks. And that means you're adding 4 DPR, which is a pretty bad capstone. Now, you could go for 2-weapon fighting and specialize in that and do something like, yes, get the Nick property for, now you're making 3 attacks with the action, go for the dual wielder feat to get a 4th attack as your bonus action. And yes, if you do White Room Papers, theory crafting, yes, you are now adding 8 DPR again per round, right? Maybe a 5th if you have a reaction attack. Okay, but you probably won't be using that bonus action attack from dual wielder very often because Hunter's Mark requires your bonus action almost every round, right? It takes a bonus action to cast it, then it takes a bonus action to move it, and depending on how much damage the party's doing and what kind of things you're fighting, you probably are moving Hunter's Mark every single round, right? That's usually what I see. You have to spend your bonus action every round to move it. So you probably still don't want to take the dual wielder feat. That's probably a dead feat for you. So at best, you're making 3 attacks using the Nick property, and 6 DPR from your capstone is, okay, right? The monk is getting a +4 to their dexterity, +4 to their wisdom. That +4 to their dexterity, just not even factoring in all kinds of other variables, is straight up adding a flat +2 to every attack they're making. They make 5 attacks per round, 6 if they have the Nick property. 5 if they're using Flurry of Blows, 6 if they are using Flurry of Blows and have the Nick property. So that's 6 attacks. That's 12 DPR for them without, really doing anything else, right? Like everything else that your dexterity could be doing for you, that's just 12 DPR. Plus everything else you're getting from your bonus to dexterity, right? That's a +2 to your dexterity saving throws, a +2 to your AC. They're actually getting +4 to their AC because they're getting also the +4 wisdom. So they actually have a +4 to their AC, +2 to their initiative bonus, +2 to their dexterity saving throws, plus 12 DPR, 10 to 12. They're just getting so much more than the Ranger. This is a disappointing capstone. There is no other way about it. Let's rank it for tier 4 now. I am moving them up to a C as a blaster And some people are probably saying, wait, they have Conjure Barrage and they've had it since level 13. Shouldn't they have upgraded to a better blaster at level 13 in tier 3? Because Conjure Barrage is one of the best blast spells. It is one of the best blast spells. But, and you first get access to it at level 9, but you don't have that many. You don't have that many spell slots, third level spell slots, right? So you're not using it that often. You're also, your save DC is probably not very good, right? If you went all in and maxed Wisdom first, you still don't have the spell slots to be upcasting it, and we're still talking level 9 when you're firing off your Conjure Barrage, which is 5d8 damage, which is about a 22.5 points of damage or something like that, right? That's just not very much damage at level 9 against creatures that you're fighting at that level, and that's even worse at 13 and 17. And now you actually do get access to some higher level spells. You got Conjure Volley also, which doesn't have friendly fire and has good damage. But again, the problem is you're a half caster and you don't have the spell slot count nor the spell slot level to be just laying out a bunch of damage, to upcast it and just do lots and lots of damage, right? Now, if you take those same 2 spells and put them on a full caster, you have an A blaster, right? If the druid could get access to those spells, they'd be amazing. If the bard still could get access to those spells, which they can't anymore, the bard would be amazing, an even more amazing blaster, because they could be blasting for large amounts of damage, upcasting these spells, doing a bunch of damage, and no friendly fire. That would probably make the bard like an S tier blaster. But they can't access them, and you're just a half caster, so you're not a very good blaster. And it's all because of your spell slots. So you're going to be a C as a blaster in this tier. A B as a controller. Yes, you have some control spells you can be throwing down now and upcasting those to target more creatures and different things like that. So you get a B if you want to be using those kind of features. And those are the only 2 things I rank up at this level. And that's because of the spells you're getting access to. And again, yes, you're getting a bunch of features, and that helps you keep up with the other classes. You're not gaining ground or losing ground on any of the other scores against any of the other classes. And here is the Ranger in context with all the other classes that I've ranked. This is just the classes that have been published by WotC, so the core and expanded rules classes. This is the core 12 classes, and the expanded one is the Artificer. And this is so if you want to look at it this way and say, like, how does it compare across the board? There you go. I like to look at it this way sometimes. I do use all this data I've put together for my games. When I build characters, I use this. When I have players who in all of my games, my one shots and campaigns, I point them to these things as well. That last column, it is cut off a little bit, but all it has is just the names of the features again. I put it in there to remind myself, and also as a reminder for anyone else using this, that those are the key things, or some of the key things going on at each tier that justify those rankings. So yeah, you can look all the way through this. I did reformat this a couple of weeks ago so that you could sort this better, so it wasn't 2 separate tabs. So if you want to look at it by class, you can sort it this way. But if you want to look at it by tier first and compare all the classes in one tier, you can also resort it to do that too. Now you have to make a copy of this Google sheet before it lets you filter and sort it yourself, which is unfortunate, but it's what we got for now. You're welcome to go ahead and do that and just make copies of it and use it for your own purposes. This is publicly accessible. You don't have to do anything. Just, follow that link in the description and you can have access to this. I do update it pretty often, so you might have to make a new copy pretty often. But I hope it helps. I'm building this as a community resource. And if you think I've got any of these ratings wrong, I would love to hear about it. If you think as a ranger, go ahead and put comments on here to let me know which things you should be adjusted, which ratings should be adjusted and why. If you want to talk about some of the other ones, it's probably easier to join my Discord, which you can also find a link to in the description. Join my Discord, and there's a whole channel dedicated to discussing ratings there. And I do, every week, seems like I change 1 or 2 ratings based on, feedback and debate with other people, with other people, right? The more people that get involved, the better this gets. All right, that's all I got for this one. Thanks for watching. If you don't have enough D&D in your life, check the video description. You can find a link to join my Discord, or you can find a link to find me on Start Playing Games. As I mentioned, if you're like the kind of person who loves ranking things and analyzing things, I'd love to have you help out and make this community resource even better. So please do that. Thank you for those who've done that and continue to do that. Really appreciate it. Remember that D&D is a game, and the only point of it is to have fun with your friends, okay? So be cool when you play D&D, all right? Catch you next time.